The following program is a Town of Colony television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
It goes all my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. And all my life's a circle, but I can't tell you why. Seasons spinning round again, the years keep rolling by.
Welcome. This is Story by Story, celebrating the human spirit. I am Kate Dudding, one of the producers. Joe Doolittle is on his way back from Paris and couldn't join us today. Usually Joe asks me the question, have you done anything interesting with storytelling in the last month? And my answer today is, since last month was March, Women's History Month, I had two opportunities to share the story about the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and how Congresswoman Martha Griffiths from Michigan made sure that the word sex was one of the words that was added to the equal employment opportunity part of that law. Now, there were some Southern gentlemen who seemed to be behind that, but they were only behind adding the word, hoping that adding that word would cause the rest of the men. There were only 10 women in the House of 435. It would cause some of the men to go, well, black men should have some rights, but women? No, that's pushing it too far. So I got to share how their tricks, what they were doing, and what Congresswoman Martha Griffiths did to counteract their tricks. At the end of her speech saying why the word should be added, she ended by saying, a vote by a white man today, because of all the men, they were all white in 1964, a vote by a white man today is a vote against his wife, his widow, his daughter, or his sister. Ooh. Yes. So there was a 30-vote majority for adding the word. Not a lot. But I was proud to see a 160-vote majority for the whole bill to become law. But then in the Senate, it was filibustered for 82 days. They stopped work in the Senate trying to disrupt that. But it finally passed. So I got to share that at the last Word Plays at Proctor for the season. It was called Always, ? And so that fit that theme. And then I was the featured teller at the open mic at Cafe Lena for storytelling. And I did a mini retrospective of my work, telling stories from four stories total. And that was one of them. So that's what I did. But now you just heard a little ooh coming from the side. So I guess I better introduce our guest, in case you might think we have a ghost in the studio today. We, the royal we are so pleased to have Lorraine Hartin-Gelardi up from Beacon now.
I live in Beacon now, yes.
Our little beacon.
I'm the beacon in Beacon.
Yes.
I never thought of myself that way.
In the lower Hudson Valley?
Yeah.
Yes, is that what one calls that?
Yeah.
So, Thank you for joining us.
Well, I'm very happy to be here. We have tried on several occasions to make this work, and it has had a couple of snafus.
Right, there was just a scheduling one, and then there was a snow one, and I just didn't want to see you doing a 3-hour round trip on a questionable day, and there were some schools that were closed in between Beacon and here, so I figured, and how high is the elevation on the throughway that you would be using? So
you were very kind. I appreciate it.
Well, Greg Brzezinski was also the studio manager, technician, editor, the whole TV studio here was also kind enough to rearrange his schedule to allow us to come on a non-standard taping day.
A non-standard. Okay.
So
that was fascinating. I really actually want to hear that story sometime.
It's on my website.
It's on your website.
Yes, watch Kate tell, and it's called Disrupting the Passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
All right, I would like very much. I'm going to go on when I go home.
Thank you. You'd have to scroll down because
Wow.
I taped that at the very first TV studio that we use in Schenectady.
Oh,
So
okay.
it goes back.
A couple of years.
Well, no, more than a couple of years.
Okay, I was being generous.
Near 10 years. So,
Yes, ma'am.
you did something very interesting, something that you've done in late winter many times.
Yes, yes.
Pray tell us about
Would you like to hear about
Yes,
that?
please.
Well, for the past 13 years, I have produced, along with my trusty friends at our Interfaith Story Circle, an annual peace concert. We believe, if we can calculate correctly, that this was our 13th. And I have to say, it's always been well received, but in particular for the past 2 years, we have had such an attentive audience. I mean, you can feel how much they need and want these stories. And the storytellers themselves, while they've always been very thoughtful, very thoughtful in how they chose the stories, and I don't know, they look upon it as sort of an interesting task, as something not as a challenge, that's not what I mean to say, but as a responsibility because of the title and the tone of what we're doing. But in the past 2 years, the stories have been extraordinary, and the response of the people in the audience has been extraordinary. And the people show up. We have it's so nice to tell stories to a full house, isn't it, Kate? Oh, it makes such a difference. But yeah, it's been a wonderful experience, a wonderful experience. And when I first started putting the concert together, I gave the storytellers a theme. 1 year it was justice, 1 year it was tolerance, things that would lead into a peaceful way of looking at the universe. But as time has gone on, I've just kind of left them to their own devices. And the stories range from fairy tales to folk tales to literary tales, the entire gamut, personal tales, and it really is, it's a fantastic thing. We have had over the years, and I think this is part of what makes it we have professional storytellers, but we also have rabbis. I have a couple of rabbis. I have one rabbi who showed up one time. He told me he couldn't come, so I didn't put him on the roster, and all of a sudden he walks in the front door, sits down in the middle of the conference and says, "I'll be glad to tell." And I was like, okay. But we have we have rabbis, we have Ani Depa, who is a member, nun, Buddhist nun at the Buddhist temple. She has told stories. She's also done a call to prayer for us. We have had people from the Baha'i faith share stories, because they have a lot of historical stories about the Baha'i faith and how it came to America and how it started in general. We have had Muslim storytellers, and we always have one of the founding members is a woman by the name of Kusum Gupta. So she has these wonderful, just little snippets of Hindu mythology, because otherwise it is an epic. Epic.
If you think Greek mythology is complex,
no. It goes on and on and on. But it's a wonderful flavoring of all the different kinds of stories and the dedication of the tellers. Yeah.
And you raise money and give
That's very
good
true.
causes.
Thank you. Yes, we do. Actually, the past 2 years we've raised, and this is, we suggest a donation. And when I say a full house, the room where we have it only fits like 60 people. So we've raised over $750. 1 year. Remember when Lee Ellen Marvin was into doing a story tsunami? I think that was our first or second one. We raised $1,500 for Hudson River Housing, which has grown a tremendous amount over the years, but it works to get housing for people who are homeless, but also people who are economically, challenged, let's put it that way. And the work that they do in Poughkeepsie and the surrounding area is amazing, amazing. So it's a good cause.
Yes.
It's a good cause. And we enjoy each other. We enjoy each other. I mean, I'm the MC, and I often, am so wrapped, but, in the story that I'm like, oh gosh, I got to get up and say something now.
You are the best listener. I remember it, I think it was my first celebration. You were in the front row at when GE's Research Center still had an auditorium.
Yeah.
And you were looking up at me, and you were just oozing encouragement and enjoyment, and I'm going, I think I'd like her at every performance.
Well, it's important to listen. It really is important. I know what it's like, and you know, obviously, what it's like to stand up on stage and look out, and people are being very polite. And you're like, no, you don't have to be polite. You can. I actually love to tell to really little children because they are right there. They are right there. They'll interrupt you, but I don't mind it because they are so involved in the story that they want to participate. They want to really be in there. And I love to tell to children because I really find them an animated audience.
Yes. Usually you don't have to say, you can do this too.
Yes,
the second time you do it, they go, oh,
they're
right.
very happy to participate. But even in schools, I love to tell to kids because they are present. They are truly present. Now, it may be that they're just happy to get out of class. I don't care. They are, they love to sit and listen. Yes. And adults are often, I think they're trying to just be polite. And you're like, well, you could be more emotive.
It still is an unknown art form, even though I think it was one of the first performing arts, whether it was music or storytelling
Or the combo.
But and now it's really under the umbrella of theater.
Yes.
And at theater, there really is not
There
a
is
connection.
a fourth wall. There is that fourth wall that separates you from the audience. And so sometimes, yes, you can see people, they're like, why are you looking at me? Don't be looking at me.
Yes, but once I think people, go through a couple of stories, they may go,
okay.
Yeah, I like to, if I see somebody nodding when I said, you know what I mean, yes, that's what was happening. And so it's a wonderful connection. I was at a storytelling conference, and it was described by contrasting storytelling and theater.
Right.
And Nancy Donoval, I think it was the person from Minnesota, said, in theater, the action all happens on the stage. And they are pretending you are not there, and you are pretending that you are not there.
Right.
And whereas with storytelling, it happens somewhere in between.
Yeah.
That it's there's an energy force, and you can directly look at people.
Oh, absolutely.
In a play, you're not supposed to come out of character and start looking around. I know actors are very attentive to what they can sense without looking directly. But they're listening and they go, oh yeah, this is a good crowd or not. But with storytelling, there's no pretense. Well, yes, I'm there and I am pretending, but there's an honest connection.
There's a real honest connection. One of the best, I remember one performance I did, and one of the women who came, I had met at the gym. And somehow we got talking, and I was doing a performance with Karen Pillsworth, and she goes, oh, I don't think I know what storytelling is. So I said, well, just come. So she came, and she told me how much she enjoyed it, and she brought her husband. And she said, now, Lorraine, this isn't going to sound like a compliment, but it really is. Well, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And then I had another woman come up to me, same performance, and she comes up and she goes, I did not want to come to this. I came kicking and screaming. She said, and I loved it. And I was like, thank you. Because you're right. People are really not sure what storytelling is. And now we've got so many. I mean, yes, we have theater, but it's performance art, or you're a spoken word artist, and the varieties of storytelling.
And probably what's most prevalent is people going to movies.
Yes.
Where everything is on the screen and it's shown studies have been shown that brain activity is a lot less when people are watching either a movie or television than when during storytelling, because the listener is creating the pictures in their mind and is relating. It's a different experience.
It really is a different experience, and that's why your audience is fully engaged because they are completely creating the scene over and over. I went and told stories in my grandson's classroom, so he's in kindergarten. And, I was talking to the kids, like I said, it's really great. I said, it's not a book. I said, I give you the words, but you make up the pictures. So after I had told the story to him, I was like, so, what did your monster look like? What da-da-da-da. And I went through my whole spiel, and my grandson goes, yeah, it's just like watching a show. Because in his mind, he was completely creating his own movie. So it was wonderful. Yeah.
Well, we've been talking about stories.
We have.
Could we hear a story, please?
I think we could arrange that. This is one of the stories that I often told when we first started the storytelling circle, the interfaith storytelling circle, because again, people come and they're not 100% sure, what exactly are we going to do, and what is story about, and what kind of thing are we going to share? So this is a story that is about stories. There was once a woman who kept all of her stories and all of her songs to herself. Her memories, her dreams, all lay hidden deep inside because no one took the time to listen. But those stories and those songs, they wanted to get out, and they found their way into the woman's dreams. And night after night, she would toss and turn and toss and turn until her husband leaned over her and said, "What is the matter with you?" "I don't know," she said. "I simply do not know." Well, one morning her husband went off to work, and the poor woman was so tired that she lay right down on the kitchen floor and went sound asleep. Well, of course, when she did, her mouth opened wide, and she began to snore. And the stories and the songs, well, they saw their chance to get out, and they flew right out of her mouth, and they hovered in the air above her. And then they looked down. "We can't just leave her there," said the stories. "Well, what are we going to do?" said the songs. And the stories changed themselves into a robe, and the songs became a pair of slippers. And the robe hung on a peg outside the bedroom door, and the slippers tucked themselves underneath. And then the woman's husband came home. And he saw the strange robe and slippers hanging by the door, and he looked at his wife and he said, "Is someone here?" She said, "No." "Well, then whose robe is that and whose slippers?" "I don't know," said the woman. "I simply don't know." Well, you can imagine that caused a bit of a row. And the husband and the wife began to argue, and they argued, and they argued, and they argued. Night fell. Now, in that village, at that time, if a husband and a wife could not settle their argument by nightfall, the husband had to go sleep in the temple of the Monkey King. And so when night came, the husband stormed out of the house and made his way to the temple of the Monkey King. And he went inside and found a room and lay down on the floor to go to sleep. And the woman sat at the kitchen table, trying to figure out what had happened. And she thought, finally she just gave up, blew out the candle, and put her head down on the table. Now, in that village at that time, when someone blew out a candle, the flame did not disappear. No, at night, all of the flames gathered in the temple of the Monkey King. Well, as the husband lay on the floor in the temple, he saw the tongues of flame come dancing in, one by one. And they hovered in the air, and it was obvious that they were growing impatient. They were nattering and chatting to each other. Well, where is he? He's never late. What do you think happened? I don't know, but he needs to get here right now. And then all of a sudden, the tardy flame came dancing in. Oh, you have to hear what happened at my house tonight. And all the other flames leaned in to hear what happened. Oh, my husband and my wife, oh, what a row they had. You see, when the husband came home, there was a strange robe and slippers hanging by the bedroom door. Oh, well, I bet that caused quite a bit of trouble. Oh, it did. But not for the reason that he thinks. He doesn't know. But that robe, it's all the stories that were in the woman's heart. And those slippers, they're all of the songs she has kept quiet. And when the husband heard that, he understood what had happened. And he got up out of the temple of the Monkey King, and in the moonlight walked back home. And when he entered the house, there was his wife, her head on the table, sound asleep. And he went to the peg by the door, and he picked up the robe, and he bent down and picked up the slippers. He carried that robe and gently placed it on his wife's shoulders. And when she woke up, he put the slippers on her feet. And then he sat down in a chair across from her at the kitchen table. And he looked at his wife. My dear wife, tell me your stories, sing me your songs, for I will not leave here until I have heard them all. And for days, oh, that house was filled with all kinds of sounds. There were howls of pain and peals of laughter and everything in between as the woman shared all of her stories and all of her songs. And that's a story called A Song Not Sung and a Tale Not Told, or something to that effect.
Excellent.
Thank you.
And what is the source of that lovely story?
I have only heard it orally. It's actually from my book, and I had heard it told in, I used to belong to a story circle called the Vision Story Circle. I had heard it told there. And the particular ending I have to credit to my friend Letty Umidi's husband. He told her that story, and she told it to me one time, and she said, but my husband, he put that in himself. Yes. Yeah.
The Monkey King makes me think it might be of Hindu origin.
I think so too, because it's Hanuman is the Monkey King. He's a bit of a trickster and a wisdom character. So, and I just like the idea of the tongues of flame as being something that inspires you and gives you wisdom and sort of is a truth teller.
Yes, in a Hans Christian Andersen story that Janine Laverty tells, a student lives above a store, and when he finds that the store owner is ripping up a book to wrap the things, he returns the food that he had purchased and said, "Give me the book."
Yes.
And there's There's something, the butter
Oh yes, all of the things come alive and they talk, and there's a little goblin.
Yes.
It's the goblin that reads the book and gets sort of entranced by or hears the student reading. Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Oh, I love that story.
Yes.
I haven't thought of that story in years. Thank you.
It might be on our website too, storycircle@proctors.org, and click on YouTube. I'm not sure.
I don't
But it's
know.
one of, I would call it one of Janine's signature stories.
Yeah, yeah.
But you can also look up Hans Christian Andersen, and The Student and the Goblin might be its name.
Yeah, or the goblin and the grocer, maybe.
Yeah.
It was something
The
like
Student,
that.
the Goblin, and the Grocer, yeah.
A bunch of people.
Yeah, Google those three nouns, and you'll probably come up to it. So you just kind of mentioned in passing your book.
Yes.
You tell us a little more about
Oh
your
my
book.
gosh, I think I finished it in 2007. It was a fascinating thing. I had never planned on writing a book. And I was doing a program of Irish stories with a friend of mine by the name of Maura Shaw. And she invited me to lunch, and I thought, well, we have to talk over, our program. And we started and we went some rudimentary things. And she said, but that's not really why I'm here, Lorraine. I said, oh. She said, I want you to write a book. I said, oh, Maura, I'm not doing that. And she goes, oh, yes, you are. Yes, you are. And she kind of explained to me what she thought I should write about, which was folk tales and fairy tales and myths retold. She said, and you'll put in a proposal, and here's who you send it to. And I did, and they said, okay, go ahead, write the book. And it was a wonderful experience, although I think it was one of the hardest things I ever did, because I'm used to writing for telling, and writing for someone to read was a whole different ball game. But I had gone to a workshop by Doug Lipman, and I think it was called image writing. And it was his technique that really allowed me to take these old stories and completely reimagine them. So I would do what I think is called wide awake dreaming, and just allow the images to flow in your mind. And these stories that I had heard or read or knew or told, all of a sudden took on these whole different life. The characters that came into them and the length. It was fascinating. I wouldn't say they changed completely. The structure was still there, but they
were richer.
Oh my gosh! And I was like, whoa, look at that. Yeah, it was an amazing experience. So anyhow, it's called Wisdom in the Telling, and then it's Folk Tales and Myths. Traditional folk tales and myths retold, which is a cumbersome title. As a matter of fact, when I first I typed it to you and asked you to put it on the website, the publisher looked at it and said, don't you think you should get the title of your own book right? Because I had typed the wrong thing. But yeah.
Yes. And Lorraine's website, as you can probably see on the screen, is www.lorrainetells.com. Lorraine's name is double-barreled, Hartin-Gelardi, and it took me a few years to really get the emphasis and the order and the spelling all put together. Now it's like, and I just write LHG.
That's what I do. Everything is LHG, and I will go into schools, and the teachers will say, well, what do you want them to call you? I said, Lorraine. No one can manage Hartin-Gelardi. I mean, if you call people, they're like, what? What do you want?
But that's not as bad as a name could be.
Oh,
I knew somebody in college, and her mother's name was originally Marie Fair Steinschneider.
Oh.
And she married a man named Higginbottom, and she used Steinschneider as a middle name, so it was Marie Fair Steinschneider Higginbottom. It could be worse.
Oh my gosh. I don't even think you'd want to be able to try and spell that. I used to work for a child development center, and I one time did calligraphy for them, and there was this one kid who had this wonderful name. It had E's and S's and all this stuff. And I would write it out, take me 4 certificates to get it to fit right back onto the thing. So I can't imagine whatever Higginbottom. I
Yes.
don't think you could fit that on anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially in the early days of forms where you got 12 letters.
That's right. That's why I actually I look like a woman of many, like aliases, because when I moved one time, I wanted to get my driver's license updated, and I wanted Hartin-Gelardi, and they're like, we don't have room for that. So I had to pick. So, yes. So I don't ever really know how people know me. Am I a Hartin? Am I a Gelardi? Am I Hartin-Gelardi?
Oh, it's not good to have AKA and several choices.
No.
That usually indicates a little.
No, it's.
Oh, and this is something that is hard to translate into written form, for instance.
Yes, exactly. Well, that was the whole other thing when I was working on the book, because when you tell, so much of this story is gesture and posture and change of voice, and all of a sudden I was like, so how do I put that in and it's not stage instructions, you know? So you had to carefully work all of that in.
Yeah. I like to give as an example, the phrase, she was that kind of mother, can be said, she was that kind of mother.
Yeah.
Or it could be said, she was that kind of mother.
Right. Right. And so you have to be very careful how you
She said toxically. I mean,
yeah, but that's just so, you really have to kind of shade it for the, yes.
So, we're about a tiny bit over halfway through, so it is the time when I tell about upcoming events.
Good for you.
So, these are the events in April 2018 in the Greater Capital District, starting with the first Tuesday Tales and Stuff. The first Tuesday is April 3rd. This is an open mic for storytelling, music, and spoken word, 7 to 9 at Arthur's Market and Historic Coffee House in the Stockade section of Schenectady. And the featured performer on April 3rd is James Gonda and the Short Writing Critique Group. So, and their topic is discoveries.
Ooh.
So, if you have a story, song, poem, essay on discoveries, I think the limit is probably 10 minutes, and just want to find out what about the short writing critique group. Does that mean the critique is in 30 seconds? I don't know. I imagine the stories are short, but come and find out. And then someplace that you've been recently,
yes,
Shawnee Evenings at the Irish American Heritage Museum on Broadway in Albany. A few storefronts south of where State Street intersects Broadway. The Luck of the Irish, the good, the bad, and the Blarney, with Mary Murphy and Nancy Marie Payne. Which one's the good and which one's the bad? They're both full of Blarney. I know
that. I know for sure.
The stories. There's luck. Okay. On April 13th. Oh, Friday the 13th. In fact, it was a Friday, April 13th, 1973, when I took my first airplane flight from Boston to Athens, Greece.
Oh my gosh, you're a very brave and not superstitious woman.
Well, it didn't occur to me, but the tunnel going to Logan Airport. Now we stopped for a little while, and that was getting me a little
disconcerting. Yes,
but everything worked out, more or less. But that's another story, which I don't share in public. Then there's the storytelling open mic up in Saratoga on the second Wednesday of the month, which in April is the 11th. It alternates between Cafe Lena and Woodlawn Commons, the Harkness building, which is in the Wesley community, which is behind Hospice on Clement Street. And that's 7 to 9, and it's free when we're there, and they feed us cookies and punch afterwards.
Nice.
Then the next Story Circle meeting, we alternate between the third Tuesday and the third Wednesday. It's not an intelligence test. It's just in case some people have something that they do every Tuesday or every Wednesday night, this gives them an opportunity to come part of the time. Wednesday, April 18th at the Pine Hills Branch Library in Albany. It's right across from Steamer 10. It's where Madison and Western Madison is birthed from Western. I don't know. Western's coming east, splits off, whatever. And 6:15 to 9, and we start early there because we have a topic each month.
Oh.
And the topic in April, as long as I'm being able to go, and I'm pretty sure I've set this aside and nothing's conflicted with it, is publicity and sharing.
Oh, okay.
Sharing. I just got a wonderful list for something else I do, the Women's Fund of the Capital Region. We've raised over $450,000 since 2007 to help women become financially independent in this area.
That is an amazing accomplishment.
And we're going to be crossing 500,000. And the amazing thing is it's a whole bunch of contributors, but it's like the core, I think at any given time. I came in like 9 months into the event. I saw an article in the paper, and I am digressing completely.
Oh, go ahead.
And so I went to their website, because I'm a webmaster, as you might have gathered from Lorraine mentioning that. And I looked and went, ooh, they need me.
Yeah.
It was someone who just didn't know anything about organizing, and the font size changed for no reason at all. And so I've been with them almost since the beginning. But it's been a core of like 20 workers that has changed over time, that has produced this.
That's an amazing amount of money.
Now we're the largest scholarship funds at both Hudson Valley Community College and Connecticut County Community College. We give second-year women, non-traditional students, women who have come back,
Right.
full tuition for the year.
Wow.
They apply through their scholarship office in their college.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And, yes, and some of them say, I read it 3 times, and then I had to have my husband read the letter because I couldn't take it in. And then we did our happy dance, and then I burst into tears. Because I didn't know how I was going to pay.
Yeah.
And thank you for helping me make my dreams come true.
Okay.
Yes. So that's womensfundcr.org. And you can hear some of our scholarship students speak. We just had that luncheon on March 9th, so that's why it's fresh in my mind. Anyways, back to storytelling, but that was a story.
That was a story, and that's a kind of story I like to hear more and more and more.
Yeah. 20% of women-headed households in the Greater Capital District live in poverty.
I know.
And I live in Saratoga County, and it's true. Saratoga, Albany, Schenectady, Rensselaer, and
I don't know.
Yeah,
one of those.
Yeah, anyways, a little further west. So back to the storytelling. Now, Lorraine mentioned the Interfaith Story Circle of Dutchess County?
Dutchess County Interfaith Story Circle.
Okay. Well, we have one here.
I know.
The Interfaith Story Circle program, which is part of their parent organization, is now called With Our Voice, Inc. Their program in April is on Wednesday, April 25th, 7 to 9. And this is their 25th anniversary year. And each program is the Power of Story 2. Welcome the Stranger.
Right.
And in April, it's to encourage us, to give us courage. And that will be at St. Madeleine Sophie Church on Route 146 in Guilderland. And you can go to their website, withourvoice.org/IFSC, Interfaith Story Circle, and find out more.
It's a lot of initials.
That's a lot of initials, but it's a lot shorter than Interfaith Story Circle.
Yes.
So, and then coming up, they will be having their actual celebration. And I'm their volunteer webmaster, and I think it's in May at the Interfaith Center in College of St. Rose. But you can see the website. I put the information up. I don't necessarily read it. I certainly don't memorize it. And if you want stories and TV is abysmal, you can always go to, on your computer or your iPhone or your iPad or whatever, go to Story Circle at proctors.org and click on YouTube. We have over 200 stories on demand.
That's fantastic.
A lot have been taped right here in this studio. And last time I checked, over 60,000 of those stories have been listened to. Not all of them to the end, I must admit. But
Don't say that. You don't have to tell anybody. They've been listened to.
yeah,
They've been listened to.
And then Margaret French had one story about baked beans, and I can even, on YouTube, you can see, if you're the owner of the website, of the YouTube channel, how long people stay.
Oh.
And that one, it's like there's a whole lot of people who leave after a minute. I think they were looking for recipes.
Oh, okay. They're like, this isn't what I want.
Well,
That's probably quite true. I have a couple of announcements of things that I'm doing, if you don't mind.
Please, please.
I am going to be emceeing at the Connecticut Storytelling Festival, and it is a wonderful festival. This year they have Donald Davis and Elizabeth Ellis, and if you...
Dovey,
Thomason.
a Native American storyteller from out west.
Right. So they have, it's a wonderful, wonderful story festival. They're very, there's a wonderful feel when you get there. The whole thing is at Connecticut College in New London, Connecticut, so it's easy to get around. Everybody is extremely friendly. The telling is always magnificent, magnificent. And of course, if you have, Dovey and Donald and Elizabeth, it's going to be absolutely
and other people.
And other people too. I would suggest you go to Connecticut Storytelling Festival. You'll find it on the web. And it is fabulous, fabulous. It's April 27th and 28th. So if you've got nothing better to do, you should come on down to Connecticut and hear a lot of wonderful stories.
And if you have any relatives or friends in that area, drag them out. Invite them to join you.
Invite, yes. Because remember what I said about that woman who said, I got dragged here kicking and screaming, and now she loves storytelling.
Yes. When we had our storytelling dinner series at the Glenn Sanders Mansion, we had a little question satisfaction survey, and one was, how did you come to be here? And my favorite comment was, well, at least I knew I'd get a good meal.
Oh my God. I know people are, when you ask for, those kinds of comments, there are no holds barred. You're like, because it's anonymous or something, people write down and you're like.
Yes. But Elizabeth Ellis suggests, start with a joke.
Yes.
A jocular tale, if you will. Not a little quickie, like I am wont to do, but a fleshed out tale. And people who have been encouraged to come will go, oh, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Oh,
yes. Story. Yeah. I get it a little bit.
Yeah.
So and then she recommends going deeper and deeper, more serious and heartfelt stories, luring them in.
Come on in.
Yes. So I guess she's a trickster.
She's a bit of a trickster, that woman.
Yes.
She is for sure. She
Yes.
definitely is. Yes.
The New England Storytelling Conference took place, well, it hasn't actually taken place, but due to...
By the time you hear this, it will have taken place.
They have a story slam, a lighthearted competition, and this year they've expanded to 8 whole minutes. And I tried to get a 12-minute story down, and okay, I'll throw it, but I realized that disrupting the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 has the Southern senators as tricksters and has Martha Griffiths as a trickster. So I think I can cut out a lot of the details and just...
You're so clever, Kate. So very clever.
If I wake up and stay in bed for a while and just not kind of focus, things come to me.
Oh, I have a friend. My friend Jack McGuire is a firm believer in, just as he puts it, loafing around and letting your imagination do the work. And it's absolutely true. Absolutely true. If you just let your mind alone, it will do its work.
Well, years ago, I was trying to write a story about the famine in Ireland, the native famine, and have people emigrate and end up in Troy and working in the collar industry.
Right.
But I couldn't find, these people didn't write diaries.
No.
So I had
they were busy.
information, but I had bits and pieces from different people, but I didn't have a continuous line. So I went to bed one night. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then I woke up the next morning. It'll be 2 sisters, and one of them will die on the boat.
There you go. No, it's true. My son-in-law, who is a physicist, he and I talk about this all the time, about the need to allow for play in our lives. I mean, and play not in the sense of just... Well, no, play. The real play where you play with ideas, you play with materials, you play with words, and you let go of trying to
My goal here is to come up with 5 points to prove.
Yeah, and he talked about when he was he was working on his dissertation, and you can imagine a physics dissertation, it's lots of numbers and equations and this, that, and the other thing. And he said, I'd be working and trying to get the problem to fit just right and trying to get it to work. And he said, and then I'd go outside and I'd play a game of Frisbee, or I'd cook a dinner, or I'd play my guitar, and I'd go back and over and over I find that happens. If I put it away and just stop badgering my own mind, it's like, okay, here it is.
Yes.
So the power of the imagination, that's become one of my... I think I open almost every storytelling session, especially for children, because I truly believe that the imagination is, honestly, the best tool we have, one of our most precious gifts, because everybody has one. And it allows us to do a lot of things, including put ourselves into somebody else's shoes.
Oh, yes.
And when you do that, well, then you're a better person.
Yes.
Yeah.
My first day jobs were I'm a certified geek. I have a master's degree in computer science.
Certified geek.
I took 5 years to get certified, to get my master's. I am proud of that. One course at a time.
Be.
And I had my son in the middle of it, which
That's a kink in the works.
Well, I took 2 semesters off. At 6 months pregnant, it's getting harder and harder to fit in one of those little chairs with the built-in, I'd sit down sideways and then very carefully spin into it.
Oh my gosh.
So I took 2 semesters off, and but I didn't want to lose the momentum. I still had 2 years, so 6 courses to go. So I was about halfway through 5. So anyways, in my geeky life, if I'm trying to solve a problem, the website is not looking what it and I realize I've just made I'm just thrashing.
Right.
I'm trying to beat it to death and
hammer away at it.
I'm going, no, go away. Put it down. Go away. There is an elegant, clear, sturdy solution, but I am not in the frame of mind right now for it to come to me.
That is absolutely correct.
And with computer programs, you want them. Fragile is a word that it's working right now, but if I go back to have to fix, add something else, I'm going to have to tear it apart. You want it to be, someone said like a poem.
Yes, the elegant solution.
Yes.
And I do find that. I find that with story ideas will come to me if I'm doing something else.
Yes. I think your brain is always working.
Yes.
And
you gotta let that little door open so it can come out and speak to us.
Right. And let it quiet and calm and all. Oh, yeah.
Oh, who would have thought of that?
Yeah, and then that's nice and clean, and the person to take over the program for me 5 years from now will be able to see what I was doing, and will be able to, adjust it however it needs to be adjusted. So anyways, I don't usually talk about my geekyhood, but geekiness, but it is a poem in some ways. A little clanky, but anyways. So, I believe you have another story to share with us. We have 10 minutes.
Okay, this is going to be one of those stories, and we're going to shrink it down. This is an Irish story. Patrick Riley. Patrick Riley was one of those people, he said and did things, and people were never 100% sure if those things that he said and did were wise or foolish. It really made them think. Well, there was this squire in Ireland who, well, he was very proud of who he was, very proud of his station in life, very satisfied with who he was, and he really wanted everybody to be aware of that. And so once a year, he had a grand party so that he could prove to everyone his generosity. And he sent out invitations far and wide, and on the day of the party, he sent out his servants to make sure that everyone was coming. Well, by the time those servants arrived at Patrick Riley's house, it was late in the afternoon, and Patrick was out in his garden digging up the potatoes. And the servants looked at him. "Patrick, what are you doing? Tonight's the squire's party. Get ready, man, and come to the party." "Oh, all right," said Patrick. He put down the spade, went over to his house, kicked the dirt off his brogans, went inside, washed his hands, combed his hair, and started down the long road to the squire's house. And he walked, and he walked, and he walked. And when he arrived, there were two more servants standing at the front door, and they took one look at Patrick, and they said, "Patrick Riley, you can't come in here." "Why not?" "Look at you, man. You've got the dirt of the field still on your clothes. Go home and change." "All right." And Patrick turned around and made the long walk back to his house. Well, when he got there, he put on the only other set of clothes he had, a suit that he wore to weddings and funerals in the county fair. And then he pulled out his father's leather boots, the ones his father had given him when he died. And Patrick put on the boots. And then he turned around and walked out of the house and back down the road, the long, long way back to the squire's house. And when he arrived, those same two fellows were standing by the front door. And they took one look at him and they said, "Come right on in, Patrick Riley." Well, by the time Patrick got inside, the party was in full swing. There was one table lined up with the best of food. There were cakes and buns and sausages and kippers, everything that a person could want. And then there was another table, and there were spirits on that. You know, the kind that one drinks out of a glass very slowly or very quickly, depending on your preference. And tuning up in the corner were a couple of fiddlers and a gentleman about to play the concertina. And over in the other corner, well, there stood the squire, his arms crossed, a smile of satisfaction on his face as he surveyed all that was going on. Well, Patrick took a look around, and he went over to the table where the food was. He grabbed 2 sausages and put them in the pockets of his jacket. And then he went over to the kippers, and didn't he open up his suit coat and take 2 of those kippers and stuck them on the inside pocket. He took a piece of pie and he stuffed it in his pants pocket. He took a piece of cake and he stuck it in the other pocket. And then he began to stuff some bread up the sleeves. Everybody watched, and they all began to laugh because, of course, it was Patrick Riley. Everyone laughed except the squire, who raised his left eyebrow. Well, then Patrick made his way over to the table with the spirits, and he pulled off that long leather boot, and he set it right down in the center of the table, looked around, grabbed himself a bottle of Jameson's, uncorked it, and glug, 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 filled the boot. Everyone went, "Oh!" The color came into the squire's face. Well, then the fiddlers and the concertina fellow, they began to play, and everyone got out on the floor and began to dance, and Patrick walked right into the center, flipped off his jacket, held it over his hand, and said, "Excuse me, would you care to dance?" And Patrick went dancing around, holding his jacket, while everybody roared with laughter, except the squire. He got red in the face, and he marched right over to Patrick Riley. "Patrick Riley, what is the meaning of all this foolishness?" Well, the fiddlers and the concertina players stopped. Everyone else stopped. Because, truth to be told, they really did want to know exactly what Patrick was up to. And Patrick looked at the squire. "Well," he said, "it's like this. The first time I came to your house, I was dressed in my everyday clothes, and the two fellows at the front door, they wouldn't let me in. So I went back home, and I changed my clothes. And when I returned, well, they opened the door wide and welcomed me. Well, since I was the same fellow both times, the only thing I can conclude is that you're not really interested in having me at the party. You're interested in my clothes. And so I'm just trying to accommodate your wishes and make sure that my clothes have the time of their life." And that's the story of Patrick Riley. And you can decide for yourself whether you think that's foolish or if that's wise.
And that is a story that is told in many traditions.
Oh, yes.
Nasruddin Hoja in the
Yes.
Muslim tradition. And I've heard Sid Lieberman would tell one in the Jewish tradition.
One in the Jewish tradition.
Shoemaker of Studena, I think.
It could be. It could be. And there, that particular, I think the Goha, and I don't know. That's also a Middle Eastern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So stories travel with people, and when they hear something that is true to them, they tell it and they reset it, so that their listeners will recognize,
We had a guy like that.
Yes. So we have less than 2 minutes left.
Aw.
It goes.
It goes, doesn't it?
Yes, it goes.
It definitely goes.
So thank you very much, Lorraine Hartin-Gelardi, www.lorrainetells.com, for traveling up from Beacon on this sunny afternoon.
So happy to see the sun. Truly, I am.
And coming and sharing your stories. Now, was that second story also in your book?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And on your website, there's a
There's a little clip of it, a written clip. Right.
and there's a button to press that
There
I hope
is.
that people can find a way to purchase it.
Yes.
Wonderful present to give to friends.
Yes.
You could read it first.
You can read it first, no one
buy 2
ever really
copies.
knows. No one ever knows.
And so thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, Kate. I really.
And thank all of you for stopping in and joining us and allowing us to share our love of story with you. And we'll be back with Joe Doolittle next month. Bye.
It goes all my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. And all my life's a circle, but I can't tell you why. Seasons spinning round